the Truth in My Days podcast, where we defend the Word of God against the challenges of men.
Hi, I'm Dana Torst, and welcome to another episode of the Truth in My Days radio program. Today, I'm here with John Torst and Jason Chan as they discuss the important topic of creation and evolution. We are continuing from the previous episode. We hope you enjoy.
The next problem we can point out here, though, and we can do this by analogy, is, say, the evolution of transport. Initially, people could walk or ride animals, but then they start building transport. Very simple things at first. A cart drawn by a horse. And go to a bicycle, and then trains, and then an early automobile, to Ford Model T, up to modern cars. Do you notice anything that these have in common?
Wheels.
Wheels. They all move on wheels in one way or another. So you have this homology among them. But does anybody think that a cart, horse-drawn cart, evolved into a bicycle? And the bicycle evolved into a train and so on? No, of course not. Nobody thinks that because we know they didn't. Mm-hmm. Okay, we know that each of them was separately, intelligently designed by an inventor. Mm-hmm. But they use the same feature, the wheel, because it's the most efficient thing we have for transport.
Yep.
It's the same thing with living creatures. God built them to live in the same kind of environment, eat the same kinds of food, drink the same kind of liquid, breathe the same kind of oxygen, with same needs to move, to reproduce, and so on. Mm-hmm. So whatever is the best design for doing this will obviously be used in modified forms on different animals. Mm-hmm. Okay? Just like with the wheel on these different forms of transportation. Right. Back in my old engineering days, the company I worked for built engine test systems and other automated process control and monitoring systems. And we had software. We had software modules. And when we had a new project to do, and they'd send in the functional specifications, what a system's supposed to do, and we would write the software for it. We would take modules that we'd already written in the past for other projects that did the thing that needed to be done for this new project, and we would use those, assemble them, and then write whatever other software was needed, especially for this project. Mm-hmm. And we would have been fools not to do that. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel for every new project. This is what intelligent designers do. They take the optimum design for a particular task and then keep reusing that when it's applicable to the same task, which is what you have with animals. Yeah. So you would expect homology if you have an intelligent designer.
Right. Yeah.
Why this explanation is better than the evolutionary one is it's easy to see how an intelligent designer would do that, just like people who build carts and people who build bicycles and people who build cars and so on. But we're back to the problem that if you have, say, the leg of a lion and you want to turn it into the wing of a bird, the bones, for example, and obviously not going from lion to bird, but you have a common ancestor becoming both,
right?
One and the other. Mm-hmm. How? Where do you get the genetic changes, the new information for these differences? And as we've said, there is no naturalistic way to do that. Mm-hmm. So homology fits in perfectly with the creationist model. And it has the problem, to try to fit in the evolutionary model, you're back to the problem that there's no way to turn from this form into that form, even if they look similar.
Right.
So it's a bit of a red herring to say, hey, they're similar, that's evidence for evolution. It really isn't. And how about this one? This is popular these days. You've probably heard this claim. Have you heard this claim before?
That we're genetically similar to apes?
Yeah, very similar. How similar are we supposed to be to chimpanzees?
I've seen 98%.
98%, or sometimes even 98.5%. We're supposedly so similar to chimpanzees. 98% chimp. And you see pictures like this showing you that DNA human chimpanzee is 98.4% identical. The gorilla chimpanzee is 97.7%. So we're actually more similar to chimpanzees than gorillas are, according to these people.
Okay.
And they seem to be very proud of that fact. They're proud to be 98% chimpanzee. Yeah? And we have books from evolutionary scientists, books like The Third Chimpanzee by Jared Diamond, the evolution and future of the human animal. Yeah. Now remember, biblically, we're not animals. We're fundamentally different. But to the evolutionists, you're just an evolved animal. And there are two types of chimpanzees, your regular chimpanzee and your pygmy chimpanzee. And according to Jared Diamond, then, we're the third type. We're actually just the third type of chimpanzee. We're so similar that we should be considered chimpanzees. Another book, Almost Chimpanzee, redrawing the lines that separate us from the apes, right? We're almost chimpanzee. Or you could do it the other way, because this other one, almost human. The chimpanzee is almost human. And they're very, very proud of this. You can get T-shirts, 98% chimp, mugs, bumper stickers, and you'll see them around there. And it's very strange. It's very strange because the Bible has such an exalted view of the human being.
Right.
We were created in God's image. In Psalm 8, verses 4 to 8, we read this. What is man that you are mindful of him, and the son of man that you visit him? For you have made him a little lower than the angels, and you have crowned him with glory and honor. You have made him to have dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, even the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea. It's a very exalted picture the Bible gives of the human beings.
Right.
We have dominion
Yeah.
over the beasts of the field, and yet the evolutionist, he wants to be a beast of the field. And he's proud of that. He's proud that we are 98% chimpanzee. So you've heard that claim before. What do you think of it?
Well, before going through all this, I used to just accept it. Didn't think much of it. But now it's kind of ridiculous. After becoming a Christian and learning that I've been made in the image of God, this is nonsense to me. So
It is. And it's interesting you say after you became a Christian. Before you become a Christian, you don't bother to look into these things. And that's the case with most people. They just hear it, they accept it with no critical thought. We are radically different from chimpanzees. And so how are we 98% identical in the DNA? The answer is we're not. We're absolutely not, and it shouldn't even be difficult to figure that out. Human being, the genome of the human DNA is more than 3.1 billion letters. The chimpanzee has 2.4 billion letters.
okay.
So we're already have like 24% or so more than they do. So how can it possibly be 98% identical? Well, it can't possibly be. So you start digging it and they'll say, well, okay, the 2.4 billion of the humans is nearly identical to the 2.4 billion of the chimpanzees, but let's just ignore the rest of it. We'll call it junk DNA and say it doesn't count.
Okay.
Yeah, junk DNA. It was very popular for a while. It's falling on hard times because as we do more research, we find out that what's called junk DNA is not junk at all.
Right.
It actually has very important functions.
Uh-huh.
Over 600 protein coding genes, but also very important in what's called epigenetics.
Okay. What's
So it's
that?
not, epigenetics is parts of the DNA that control other parts of the DNA.
Okay.
When you think about it, DNA codes for proteins. Well, that's very nice. So you got proteins. But the DNA would just make a whole pile of proteins. How does that get put together in the human body?
Okay.
How does what about the control function of what turns on their operation, what turns off their operation, and that kind of thing. So
I see.
we've learned very little, actually, about DNA. We thought we figured it all out, and we realized that actually we were just starting to scratch the surface. So now we find the chimpanzee genome matches 76% human genome, which means we have a maximum of 76% identicality. And we don't even have that, because to make them line up precisely, you'd have to introduce some gaps in one or the other, which gives you another 3% difference. Where you line them up, there's still places where there's a letter difference between the human and chimp. So you have another 1.23% difference. There's copy number variations where different numbers of human genome line up with different numbers of chimp genome. That's another 2.7%. So the similarity might actually be below 70%.
Yeah.
And some other scientists would put it higher, but now the understanding is it really can't be more than 85%,
Okay.
which is really not all that similar anymore.
Right.
But then the 98%, these kind of claims that are made, DNA, human, chimpanzee, 98.4% identical. It's simply not true. Okay? It's another one of those things to get people to believe evolution, but it's simply not true.
Okay. Also, the mention of junk DNA, it kind of reminds me of the arguments of things like vestigial organs and things like that. Will we be talking about those as well?
We can talk about vestigial organs. Vestigial organs are organs in the human body that people used to think had no function, and therefore, why are they there at all? And I was thought, well, these are left over from our evolutionary past.
Right.
It used to do some kind of function. It's lost a function, so it's kind of like shrunk, and it's just left over. They were pointing to something like the appendix, for example. They said the appendix is a vestigial organ. It's left over. It's just a little sac inside along part of your intestines, a little sac. And you can get appendicitis. You can get bacteria trapped in there and eventually give you an infection.
Right.
And that needs to be gotten rid of. Okay? Operation to remove it. If you don't, the bacteria builds up, eventually your appendix will burst. And that will kill you.
Right.
So, and doing an operation on a burst appendix is a lot more difficult than removing it before it bursts. And so evolutionists will say, well, why? Why do you have an appendix at all? It's left over. But there's two problems here.
Okay.
Well, think about it this way. Suppose this had a function before, but it's lost the function.
Yeah.
So we could say, well, why would you lose a function that was good? But maybe there's some reason you lose the function, all right? Then why evolve this organ down to a little sac that can kill you? Like, wouldn't evolution remove it entirely? Why would it just shrink it and leave a little bit there? That makes no sense. What kind of mutations could you have going along the line that would lose the functionality and then make it smaller and smaller and smaller instead of getting rid of it? If it could, like, why would it become small? What would be the advantage of a small little sac that can kill you?
I see.
So from survival of the fittest, it makes no sense. And from the creationist point of view, turns out it does have a function. And the function is an important part of your immune system. Okay. It's not functionless. The same thing with tonsils. Way back when, maybe when I was little or a bit before that, people got tonsillitis, their usual response was to remove it. You get a tonsillectomy. They take it out because they thought it was a vestigial organ. No use, so just get it out. Now they don't do that. They treated it with antibiotics or other things. They don't want to take it out because they found, oh yeah, this has a function. I think that's an immune system as well.
I see.
So you go through one by one these supposed vestigial organs, and we find they actually have functions. They're not vestigial at all.
Okay.
Even if you could find one where we don't know the function yet, it doesn't mean it doesn't have one.
Right.
But even if we haven't found it, there's no explanation why evolution would have left it here. Why it would shrink it but not get rid of it. It makes no sense. But yeah, that is an argument you will hear brought up. And so it's good to do away with that argument. And then they get more and more creative in their arguments. I don't know if you've heard of this one. And this one's a pretty arrogant one, if you ask me. It's the argument from unintelligent design.
Thank you, everyone, for listening today. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but please join us for the next part tomorrow. Same time and same place. If you enjoy our content and think this is important material, the best compliment you can pay is by sharing this with your friends and family. This helps us out a lot. Also, if you enjoyed today's program, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this podcast. We would love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to the Truth in My Days podcast with John Torse. We would love to hear from you. Please feel free to share any questions or comments you may have. You can reach us on Facebook, Instagram, MeWe, and YouTube. Simply search Truth in My Days as one word. Again, Truth in My Days as one word, no spaces in between. And you can connect with us. You may also visit our website for more comprehensive material and to learn more about our ministry. Our website is truthinmydays.com. Thank you.